Marques, today we're going to talk about the hidden cybersecurity risks in AV systems. And we were talking earlier this week about how this is becoming a lot more prevalent for a lot of different reasons. AV and IT are increasingly converging, which increases the attack surface, the vectors, all the fancy cybersecurity language. And so I know that this is the risks and the incidents are rising, partly due to AI. And this is not related to AV, but I wanted to give this really quick story of something that I heard or that I experienced in the last couple of weeks, where I had a colleague who's another a marketing firm reach out to me via email from their email address, and it was a fully built website where it was asking for an RFP for a quote, and it was going to give me secure materials, and I had to just click this button and log into my Google account to access these secure materials. And I know your brain's already on fire because you're like, don't click on that. Please don't do that. Don't log in.
Don't click on anything.
But I say that to say it was so realistic, like my colleague's brand, his email, his almost his web address. It was very, very close. And it was all AI generated, fully baked website with a link. And it looked great. I say all that to say, with AI, these risks are dramatically increasing, and I'm sure you're seeing this in AV, and I know you're going to see it more in the future. So we can talk more about that. But what's your hot take on AI right now before we jump in?
Oh man, my hottest take would be I'm all out on AI, Brandon.
All out? Oh, come on. Why?
I'm not all out. That's over the top. I'm mostly out, not all out. It has its utility. So for me, from the very beginning, it's a lot of over-promising and under-deliver. So I'm old enough to have gone through the tech bubble of 2001. Coming out of college, I remember it very vividly. There's so much hype, and then it's not quite what everyone thinks. I'm old enough to remember the internet really picking up when it was coming into homes more, getting more access and things like that. And heck, I'm still waiting on my flying car from the Jetsons. But all that aside, it's so much hype. But the hype is outpacing security, is outpacing just quality boundaries. You see, I've heard of so many cases of folks having kind of rogue AI bots and things going on in their workplace, and people aren't thinking like, hey, do you really want this on your network to have access to your sensitive materials, your data? And your story is a perfect example of how, I hate to say good guys and bad guys, but for ease of understanding, you're good guys that try to defend your network. You're bad guys trying to get in. Everyone has the same tools, right? And it just seems like the threat complexity has just skyrocketed. I mean, your example is perfect. Phishing and spoofing and all of these things. Social engineering was always one of the better attacks, right? It really gets at things that people want to do. I want to respond fast to my colleague, or I want to respond to this email. I want to believe that, I've got this great RFP. I tell everyone in our company, and I go by it, and we've had, these challenges as well. But if I don't expect it from you, I'm not responding to it. I'm not clicking on it. I don't answer the phone if I don't recognize the number. And it just feels like, for all this promise, where is the enhanced security and the guardrails to keep up with, what's happening on the negative side of this, right? The phishing campaigns now are kudos to whoever's putting them together. They're amazing. But that was always a little bit of the case. Like, people don't know that. I hate the term dark web, but I'll just use it, dark web, okay? But you can actually go out and just buy attack kits, right? It's not like there's some guy living in his basement trying to invent everything. No, this is actually a store where you can buy these things, and folks just don't really know. So I'm like, well, how did AI, yes, it's improving some security and analyzing things coming inbound, things like that, and that's great. But it just seems like the rate of attack or the rate of breach is increasing year over year over year. I mean, the breaches now are just... the scale of them is just astronomical. People, I don't even know if they remember like the Target breaches. And in our area, in North Carolina, there's a thing called Power School. Data breach. It's just data breach after data breach. And it really is accelerating with, AI tools, because again, AI tools are for everyone. They're not just for the folks at work. But aside from the extreme cases, it's just users not being careful or letting things go without quality controls, right? It's one thing if you can use it as a way to enhance your own work. Make sure you verify the outputs, because too many times when I see some mistakes, if someone threw something in AI, they didn't verify the output, they just let it rip. It's incorrect. It's wrong. I don't like the term hallucinate, but I know that's the term people understand. Oh, these hallucinations. That's just wrong information. And I put it in terms of an employee. If you hire a new employee, you're training them up, and they're continually giving you work or work product that's incorrect. Okay, maybe you get them on a performance plan, or you try to help them, and you try to train them more, and you get corrections. At some point in time, you say, this is not working out, and you're going to let the employee go. That's how I feel about AI. It's like, you want me to spend my time double checking every single output coming out of this that just tells me it's not quite ready. And it's also, for people that don't know, what is AI versus what is automation versus, things that already existed and were really just automation. Now they're branded as AI. And again, marketing is important, very important. But what is really happening? And having more education about that and really understanding is just one of the big things I would love to see more of, because there are camera tracking technologies that have been around for, say, a decade. Now they're branded as AI. I'm like, wait, what's the difference? It seems to perform the same way it did last year, the year before. I was like, am I missing something here? So I get off my soapbox on that, but I think it could be very powerful. It could really be a multiplier if you can use it correctly. Like I said, double check your outputs. If it can help you with equations, help you with, any kind of design work, or just even your own thinking about a problem, I think it does have some huge potential to be a multiplier on the work you can get done and things you can accomplish. But, one little just snarky comment, I'll let it go. If AI on its own is so smart, why can't it design its own eco-friendly data center?
I like that. That is a problem for somebody with
wondering.
A lot more money than me to figure out how to build one of those.
Exactly.
I'm with you. I will confess, I was guilty of shipping a bad output on AI, and I realized how easily these things can slip out, and you just gotta be very careful. So yeah, it is a real thing. Quality control is definitely a very serious thing. But I found it's most helpful on communication and project management. If you can stick within that, it does a phenomenal job. I love it for that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's tough.
Yeah, and it's early. I don't want to write it off. It's early technology. And that's the case of everything. Everything, is early, and there's the hype cycle. Oh, it's so great. And then it tails off a little bit, and then you get into the actual utility of, okay, what does it really do? I think, for me, it's just kind of living through that hype cycle right now and then figuring out what it really does.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. I brought up that story because it was so good. I'm usually not a victim of any of these things, and I wasn't ended up being a victim. I didn't log into anything, but it was so good, and I was so impressed that I almost did fall for it. But I say that to say, I want to hear from you. What are you seeing on the convergence between IT and AV nowadays? Where are these things overlapping more and more within your industry, and how do you see the security vulnerabilities within that convergence popping up now more, let's say, in the last year or two that you haven't really seen previously?
Yeah, I'd say, so when it comes to convergence, AV, in some places it lives under IT, it coexists really, really tightly now. As more things become network-based via protocols and just transports of signals, things like that, this was always going to happen. You're going to have this just crashing of AV and IT and what the rules are and what you need to have happen. And I think the biggest thing is that's continuing to push forward, right? So AV over IP and all these methods that are coming out and all these protocols, whether it's, ST2110, IPMX is coming out, and all these, they're all relying on a network. And so for a user, or an environment, now we're really thinking, okay, how are we going to handle this, right? How is this going to go? Am I going to create a separate network? I'm a fan of these. It's just what I like. I like control. No shocker there, I guess. So I'm in the AV sector and I want to be able to control all my devices. But honestly, it's a deep conversation about, okay, what is the IT policy? How do I adhere to it? How do I do my part to be secure on the network? And are we doing a complete AV network? Meaning I've got redundant, not redundant at that point, but I have a secondary set of switches, all the cabling is dedicated for just AV. Or am I doing just one consolidated network where, hey, this network already exists, right? And that's one of the promises of AV over IP is I can make this ride on the existing client network. Yes, you can. Not just in terms of functionally understanding the protocols involved and how to optimize it for this much bandwidth and traffic is being added to a network, but from a security standpoint, if all these devices are now touching this, how do we segment it, right? Are we doing VLANs? Are we doing virtual routing and forwarding? Like, what are we doing to protect not just users, but sensitive corporate data from being accessible? And on the bright side, in the AV sector, we've seen more of a increase in companies taking security more seriously. There's some manufacturers out there now that allow you to basically run almost like a pen test, so a penetration test within their stack, just to make sure you're not leaving passwords exposed. You don't have Telnet active if you don't want to, or SSH capability. And, as that, I think becomes more and more to the forefront on the AV side, that will really help create a really strong bond between your AV and your IT to make sure, we're not the point of entry. There would be nothing worse than, getting a call from a CIO or CISO, and you're getting called into the office because some random black box sitting on the corporate LAN is serving up malware, or it got, accessed and it had no password in place. Admin, right? I can't think of how many times and how many boxes are admin or admin password. For some of you at home listening, if that's your router password, please change it. It is not secure. But I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is as more of these devices are all network based, there is a deep discussion that should always be happening early on, so that we can plan on not just connectivity, but also how do you secure it? How do you keep the environment secure? And if you need to, how do you segregate it? How do you keep these things from even touching one another? And all of that should be happening, early on, because again, you don't want to put something on a device and next thing you know, it's gone rogue. Someone got access to it. Anything is happening and you have no idea.
Okay, I want to get more into the kind of things that you would do before you sign a new contract for an AV provider or something like that. But first, I'm going to go buy a tractor and I'm just going to quit all my job and just sit and mow the grass out in the farm to get away from technology.
Hey, dude, farming is high end.
No,
I used to do some work for farmers.
A small one. Yeah,
it's wild.
That is true. Yeah, I've been reading a lot of Wendell Berry lately, and he talks about mass agriculture. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I want to hear from you. Do you have a story that you have seen recently, let's say in the last 6 to 12 months, where you saw a very serious security vulnerability that is probably more commonplace than people would imagine? Is there something that you saw, either a client or a colleague or just somewhere in your network, that you realize this is a major issue that AV can help with, securing that with IT, but maybe something that comes to mind that it's actually pretty common that this happens and people should be on the lookout for it? But is there anything like that comes to mind?
I think two things come to mind. One is more severe. So I'll start with a severe one. We have someone we're working with, and massive network, right? Multiple sites, multiple floors in a building, highly sensitive equipment is on the network. There's also an AV network. And one day I'm trying to find a device. For whatever reason, I'm just, looking for something. And I run in IT, everyone will get this ARP-A, right? It's a way to send out a request for devices to respond to you. And I do this looking for one of my AV devices. The next thing I know, I am getting responses from like 6-figure scanning devices, medical equipment, all these things. I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, there's no way these things should be talking back to me. So then now I'm interested. At first I was on the AV network. And so I say, okay, let me jump on the guest network. Hop on the guest network, repeat the commands, same result. I immediately know there's a problem, right? And so for those that aren't in the network side of things, if I run this command in an ideal world, I don't really get anything back, right? Maybe a few IP addresses will respond back, but not very much. If I am on a guest network in any environment and I run this command and I see computers and servers and scanning devices and everything is responding back to me, and I know that the network should be segmented, I know there is a configuration issue. So this actually did happen. And again, this is a real story. This actually happened. So being a good Samaritan, I'm reaching out to our contact and saying, hey, just want to alert you. I was searching for a box on the guest network, ran this command, and all these devices are responding. And I gave them a list of the IP addresses they're responding, took a screenshot. And, oh man. So anyone that has tried to have a meeting with more than, say, 5 people, that getting scheduling done can be tough. Getting everyone to align. And I have never seen 20 people get on a meeting so fast in my life. That's how serious this was, right? And I don't think, if you're outside the IT world, you won't really get why this matters so much. But imagine being in a hospital or a government building. Imagine a hospital and MRI machines, scanners, echocardiograph machines, and all these things are just randomly accessible. Like, imagine that happened. And this is the kind of level we were dealing with. So immediately within, I think it was in 24 hours, I was on the conference call with up to 20 people representing different facets of IT. Because some couldn't believe it was possible. Some didn't care. They were like, hey, I don't want to hear what's possible or not possible. I want to hear how do we make sure this is not going to happen beyond today. And I mean, it was wild. But, we spent the next, 30 minutes, me just revealing my findings, going over how I did it. Again, it's like, I'm not running a VPN in your network. I don't have a, company issued computer from you. I'm literally on my personal device and all these devices are responding to me. So it was, and all it was just a misconfiguration. I don't know how I didn't get caught in testing, right? Because when you're doing this, you're segmenting your networks. You're trying to make sure that you don't have the capability of, one device talking to another across your network. So that was a pretty big deal, right? And it started from, I'm just testing AV devices. And I was told, and we were told that no, there's a completely separate segment for AV. So feel free to do what you need to do and, go from there. So it really blew my mind when I saw these devices responding back to me and I could see them clearly and pull IP address information and ping them and do all these things. So that one was,
but for those of us
who
don't have, IT backgrounds, I'm sure there's a lot of leaders on this call that are on this, listen to this podcast that, don't have this kind of background that you do. What does that mean? Like, what was the vulnerability? What could potentially happen because of that? Like, break that down for me.
Yeah. So put it this way, imagine your neighbor could see everything on your network. Right? Imagine not just your one neighbor, every neighbor, anyone near you can see everything on your network. Not just see it, but because keep in mind, if I can see it, then I can interact with it. I can potentially intercept it. So I can gather your keystrokes. I can see, what are you communicating with? I can figure out where you're banking. I can figure out all these things about your day to day just from seeing your network traffic.
So I could log into like an MRI machine and see what the images are or like what people are clicking.
Or you can start
the data transfer
hammering that. Yeah. Or you can start just even hammering that machine with random packets of data and shut it down. So scary scenario, right? Just say you're dealing with an MRI and someone just starts hammering with data packets and they are able to cause it to malfunction, or any other machine where you're in the middle of a procedure, right? So I'm not in the medical space with IT, so I don't know what is or is not possible with that. But I do know if you flood a network with traffic, it stops.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You can stop the network from functioning. So that's some of the biggest risk when you see a situation like that. And again, it blew me away because I'm like, man, I'm on a wireless guest network. This should absolutely not be. And as soon as I saw it happen, I knew it was incorrect. So that's why I went ahead and alerted someone so they could, take whatever steps they needed to. And then for us, it meant, we helped them by going back in, reconfiguring all IT devices, getting a new network set up, new IP scheme, and rolling that out as fast as we could. So it's, and again, it's just one simple misconfiguration and you have that happen.
I feel like that alone was worth hiring you. Just like you found this thing. It's like, hey man, you saved us a bunch of money. This is great.
It's just one of those things, man. We try to help where we can, but that one. So that's an extreme, oh wow, this is. And again, it's just a misconfiguration that I just, we were told we're on a separate network, virtually separate, not physically. And through just discovery and some testing, I realized we weren't. And so another one that was not us, but I got an earful about it. We're doing a project for a university. And, it was their first AV over IP deployment as a pilot. So we said, great. We have a manufacturer we trust. We have some best practices we share with them. And as soon as we got to the room, they said, hey, listen, we have to make sure we have the network nailed down because the way their network is structured, a lot of universities may have what they call a core. And so all the traffic goes from any building back to the core. And that's how they do their routing. Apparently, another AV team had come in and they put a device on the network. And again, simple misconfigurations, right? They had this device set up for DHCP. And in this case, it was acting as a DHCP server. So for those of you that aren't in this world, what that means is this box is giving out IP addresses to devices. It's really helpful if it's the only box doing that. But when you have a routing solution, a server or whatever, your preferred solution is actually issuing or serving up IP addresses, well, now you cause a conflict. And what my contact told me is the team before us, when they did this, it was a complete accident. They just forgot to switch it off before they connected it. it actually shut down an entire segment of campus-wide network dropout because of a box being added to the network with the HCP server activated. So, I heard that story and it was an immediate, hey guys, in our just normal process, let's make sure any device that functions as the HCP server, make sure it is off. Unless we have a clear, like we are not serving. And then, there's different ways we deal with it on our end. And anyone in AV, maybe you do it from the switch. Maybe you do have a processor, but you're a dedicated network. So there's other ways to deal with it. But when I heard that story, I just kind of chuckled. I was like, oh man, and again, it's tough because historically, some AV teams don't have a lot of IT background, but IT teams don't have a lot of AV background. Now you really do need both of those things, on your team to understand, number one, how do you even have the conversation, right? First and foremost, what are the things I need to watch out for? What are the items I'm going to need help with? I don't want to just go put anything on anyone's network. That's just, bad form. And then helping the clients understand why it's so important, because sometimes I think IT gets a bad rap. Users don't always love their IT team because, the IT team is tasked with keeping everything protected. And that's a really hard deal when the number one, weakness in any IT environment is the user, right? So I want to come in with my iPhone, or I've got my personal phone I want to use for X, Y, or Z thing. I've got my personal laptop. IT won't let me do it. So I'm going to figure out a way to do it on my own. And it's just one of those things where, IT is oftentimes playing defense. They'll try to educate and try to share. And then, on the AV side of things, hey, I just need my stuff to work, right? I'm in this meeting room. I need my things to work all the time. I don't want calls randomly on a Thursday that the system's offline and I find out, oh, we did a switch reboot or we changed our IP scheme and I was getting my IPs from the IT team. So that's the most important part to this is those teams have got to be connected at the hip. But I advise if you're in the IT space, understand the protocols that are popular in AV, where the segments are headed. And if you're on the AV side of the equation, you should absolutely, if you don't study up on it, have someone on your team that has an IT background or has some level of comfort, switch configurations, understanding protocols, things like that, because we're not going backwards, right? We're not putting the toothpaste back in the tube. We're just going to continue to go forward and accelerate. So we need to know how to have these conversations. And as more of this merges, how do we deal with it safely?
It's always a trade-off between security and convenience, right? We've talked about that before. Absolutely. On some episodes, yeah. Okay, so given all that, given those stories, and you kind of alluded to some of these things, give us really clearly process, step one to step whatever. What would you recommend people do to make sure that their AV and IT setup and where those connect, that's a very secure, very good, best practice place to start? Where do you even begin with that? It sounds overwhelming.
So if we start on the AV side, that's the easy way to do it. First and foremost, talking with manufacturers, right? If a manufacturer has any device that has to be on the network, they should be able to offer white papers, security information, gather all that, right? Make sure you go through it and have a basic understanding of it yourself. Share that with the IT team. When you have a project, usually IT is not the first person there, so you have to request, like, hey, we're going to need this many ports, this many IP addresses, whatever may be happening. But if you're touching someone's network, everything you learn from the manufacturer, share that with the IT team. That way, everyone's on the same page, because one of the issues you may run into, the hardware that you're first looking at may require a protocol that IT does not allow. Multicast traffic is one of the biggest ones. Some IT spaces say we don't allow multicast. Okay. Some unicast only or blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're having a camera, video switching system, whatever, and it requires that, and you didn't have this conversation, you didn't check, you didn't share the materials, when you go to set it up, now it's not working. Well, it's because they're blocking that traffic. So first and foremost, again, check with the manufacturers, make sure you understand, validate your own design internally on the AV side. But then again, share that. Your direct client probably is not on the IT team. Make sure they can get you in contact with the IT team so you all can sit down, understand what is the plan, how are you planning to deploy it, what network are you touching, how are devices needing to communicate, what all needs to happen, and what all is possible and what's not possible. Because we've had cases where we changed manufacturers because, one protocol wasn't going to be allowed. We went to another manufacturer where it was allowed, and we moved on from there.
Okay. What about on the IT side? I mean, obviously, like step one is if you're going to have this conversation, bring both parties to the table.
Yep.
You got obviously leadership at the healthcare institution or the university. Bring them to the table. Take IV and IT together and make them talk. I mean, just yeah.
On the IT side, I'd say it's really helpful. Have standards. Have standards that are, publishable, shareable, expectations, and be friendly, be nice to your users, right? Make sure it's hard to create that relationship because, again, your job is to secure the environment, but make sure it's not an adversarial relationship because now these projects are happening behind your back. So, invite users in, help, I'd say educate, because a lot of times you can educate the user on why they can't do something. It helps them to understand a little bit better. If they understand the threat that their phone poses to the network and why you don't allow it to get on, or you can give things where you give, agreements. I've seen places there say, sure, you can bring your personal devices. We have to run a package on it. And so that just so you know, if anything goes wrong or awry at any point in time, we can potentially wipe your phone. If you sign up for that and you're good with it, then we can move forward. But it's just understanding, from the IT side of things, what is this project, right? When is it happening? Why does it need to happen? What do you need from IT to support this? That's the biggest thing from the IT side of the equation is making sure there's, a publishable set of documentation that you can share, whether it's the kind of cables you're requiring, the color scheme of the cables. That's very common. Like, hey, all your cables need to be blue. All of mine are going to be yellow. Jacks are this certain color. So anything like that forms a standard. And if you don't have one, go ahead and create one. Because again, if you look up in the ceiling and all you see is a bundle of blue cabling, how do you know what's what? So it's something we share with folks as well, as far as like color codes, just common things like that to make the process easier for both parties.
You help create those kind of protocol standards. Like, let's say there's a new building being created and you get to be there at the very beginning. You help create some of those, like, okay, we're going to use yellow cables, you guys use blue cables, and you kind of set that standard. That's right. Okay, that's really helpful.
We do. We're in the design phase. Those are some of the questions we ask right away. We standardize on category cabling, Cat 6. So I always ask folks, do you have a specified color for AV already? And if not, what colors are you using? We are doing a project for a hotel chain. I think they're using almost every color available right now, but they had standards. So they shared and said, hey, here are the colors that we're using for our cabling. You have to adhere to this. It was great because, again, you don't want to pull all this cabling, connect everything, and then have to do it over again.
And then last but not least, don't check your bank account at the coffee shop.
Ever. So my go-to is don't use free Wi-Fi. It sounds counterintuitive, and it's like, man, everyone has free Wi-Fi. Yes, they do. Even when I'm out and about, if I need Wi-Fi for some reason, I'll even fire up a VPN to connect back to my home. It's just, or outside of a secondary VPN. But in general, there's so many things that can happen on public Wi-Fi, and the person helping to get your coffee order put together, it's not their job to worry about is their network secure. That's someone else's, deal, someone else's problem. And a lot of these, networks, someone just goes, buys a basic router, throws it in, and, here you go. It's free Wi-Fi. So, and a lot of people are more complex than that. I don't want to undersell those teams that are out here. I know hotels have great IT teams supporting them, and some restaurants have it as well. But no, I am anti-free Wi-Fi. I get on my family about it. They don't listen, but I even tell my family, please don't use free Wi-Fi. Or if you do, let's do it in a secure fashion.
Okay, I'm going to Google this later to figure out how to do that. Somebody told me that once, and I was like, I don't know how to do that. But I should listen to
it's actually
my friend Marques.
It's much easier. Much easier nowadays than it used to be.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Well, Marques, any final words of advice? Any kind of anything people should check out when they're thinking about IT and AV and how these work together with the security side?
Yeah, we're no longer separate teams, right? We're really joined at the hip. The whole goal is to produce this vision, transform this vision into reality and deliver on an awesome project. To do that, you've got to have partnerships. And those partnerships, you got your internal clients and your external clients, and treat everyone like a client, right? Everyone should be a partner in the process. And that's how you work through these things to make sure that at the end, everything's working as expected versus now you're trying to go back and fix some issue or, spending additional dollars and time trying to deal with an issue that could have been resolved early on in the process. So again, they're not adversaries. They're partners in delivering on solid projects.
Well, thank you so much. If you are interested in more resources like this, please go to contek.com, kontek.com, and you'll see lots more from Marques and the team putting together great resources for you guys to build your dreams into reality. Marques, thanks. We'll see you next time.
See ya.